Are religious mystics reformers and revolutionaries of their faith, or are they conservative champions of their tradition? Today we're continuing our investigation and criticism of perennialism, or the idea that all religions share one common core. We'll be basing our critiques on the work of Stephen Katz. Katz really shook the scholarship on mysticism and religion with works like Mysticism and Religious Traditions when he proposed a contextualist model. For Katz, a mystic is not having a pure mystical experience and then later interpreting it in the language of their tradition, whether it's Christian, Hindu, doesn't matter. Instead, for Katz, a Christian mystic is having an exclusively Christian mystical experience and even bringing expectations, concepts and language borrowed from the tradition. A Christian mystic will not have a Hindu mystical experience, and an Islamic Sufi will not have a Buddhist one. Katz argues that whatever we may think of the nature of mysticism, the only evidence that we have are the accounts of the mystics themselves. Even mystics themselves have no privileged access to the experiences of other people, even though some of them might claim that they do. Furthermore, for Katz, mysticism is an act of following a certain path that the tradition has already laid forth. Katz writes that what a mystic reads, learns, knows, intends, and experiences along the path creates to some degree the anticipated experience made manifest. In other words, the mystical experience is being anticipated on traditional lines. This is why Katz will try to emphasize the conservative nature of a mystic. In the same way that we discussed last time, Meister Eckhart is going to have a mystical experience that is very much based on concepts of the Trinity. In the same way, an Islamic Sufi will base their mystical experiences around the Quran, whereas a Buddhist, for example, will have experiences related to nirvana or sunyata. Katz argues that mystics have knowledge by acquaintance, what their co-religionists have knowledge of by description. For example, Saint Teresa of Avila will not only encounter Jesus in her mystical experience, but will also receive existential verification that the concept of the Trinity, for example, is true. So while Saint Teresa of Avila is having direct experiences of doctrine, people who are not having these experiences will usually just take on these doctrines as beliefs. That is to say, such experiences are highly specific, more often than not reinforcing the structures of established religion even down to its most technical detail. Mystics, for Katz, will even try to domesticate their radical ideas in the language of orthodox frameworks. Mystics and their followers might do this in a number of ways. They can view their teachings as the older teachings in a new disguise, as a personal confirmation of an already existing doctrine, a legitimate extension of a traditional teaching, or a new but still authoritative stage of development of the tradition. This does not mean that people will not dislike mystics and try to accuse them and even sometimes martyr them for their ideas, or that perennialists won't take on their teachings to boost their perennialist project. For Katz, this is just evidence that the mystic is being viewed only as a reformer and as a heretic in some cases. There are a lot of examples throughout history which we can refer to further discuss this. In the next episode, we're going to stay with Katz and take one of the examples he provides and see how a Jewish and a Christian will interpret the biblical book, the Song of Songs, in a different mystical way. The crux of the argument is that mystics should be viewed as both reformers and conservative figures within a religious tradition. Ignoring one and isolating the other as the focus really misrepresents what the mystics are trying to do. That's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed another episode of TeaSoteric.